I woke up to the sound of machines beeping and the sterile smell of disinfectant burning my nostrils. My head throbbed like someone had taken a hammer to my skull. The fluorescent lights above me were too bright, too harsh. I tried to move, but pain shot through my entire body. Mrs. Hartwell? Catherine? Can you hear me? A doctor's face appeared above me, blurry at first, then slowly coming into focus. He had kind eyes, the kind that had seen too much suffering. What happened? My voice came out as a raspy whisper. The doctor glanced at someone behind him, then back at me. You were in a serious car accident 3 days ago. You're very lucky to be alive. Lucky. The word felt wrong somehow. Your brakes were cut, Mrs. Hartwell. This voice was different. Harder. I turned my head slightly and saw a police detective standing at the foot of my bed, his arms crossed, his expression grave. This wasn't an accident. Someone tried to kill you. The room started spinning. I closed my eyes, trying to process what he'd just said. Someone tried to kill me. Who would want me dead? But deep down, in that dark place where we keep the truths we don't want to acknowledge, I already knew. Patricia. My mother-in-law. Let me take you back to how this nightmare began. 2 years earlier, when I married Daniel Hartwell, I thought I was entering a fairy tale. He was everything I'd ever wanted, kind, successful, handsome. We met at a charity gala where I was working as an event coordinator. He approached me with that devastating smile and said, "You made tonight magical. Would you let me take you to dinner and hear how you did it?" 6 months later, he proposed on a beach in Santorini at sunset. It was perfect. Meeting his mother, however, was not. Patricia Hartwell was old money, the kind of woman who wore pearls to breakfast and judged you by your grandmother's maiden name. The moment Daniel introduced us at their family estate in Connecticut, her eyes traveled over me like I was a stain on her imported Italian sofa. "Catherine," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "How quaint. And what does your family do, dear?" "My father was a teacher and my mother was a nurse," I replied, meeting her gaze steadily. "Was?" Her eyebrow arched. "They passed away when I was 22. Car accident." I saw something flicker in her eyes then. Not sympathy. Calculation. How unfortunate. And you have no siblings? No family at all? "No, ma'am." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Well, you must be so grateful to have found Daniel. That should have been my first warning." The wedding was a war zone disguised as a celebration. Patricia insisted on controlling every detail, the guest list, the venue, even my dress. When I stood my ground on wearing my mother's vintage veil, she accidentally spilled red wine on it during the rehearsal dinner. "Oh dear," she gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in mock horror. "How clumsy of me." "Well, at least now you can wear something more appropriate." Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. "Mom, that was an heirloom. It was old, darling. Catherine needs to learn to let go of the past and embrace her future as a Hartwell." I wore the veil anyway. I had it cleaned overnight, paid extra for rush service, and walked down that aisle with my mother's lace framing my face. Patricia's smile never wavered, but her eyes promised retribution. The first year of marriage was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Patricia had a key to our apartment, Daniel insisted, for emergencies, and she used it liberally. I'd come home from work to find her rearranging our furniture. "I was just helping, dear." "Your choices were so pedestrian." She'd show up to dinner parties we hosted and critique my cooking in front of our guests. "Bless your heart, Catherine, you've done your best with what you know. Perhaps I should send you to my culinary school in Paris." She called Daniel at all hours, claiming emergencies that required his immediate attention. A leaking faucet. A strange noise. Loneliness. He'd rush to her side every time, leaving me alone in our bed, staring at the ceiling. "She's my mother, Catherine. She's all alone since Dad died. Can't you be more understanding?" understanding. That's what he always asked for. But what about me? Who understood what I was going through? Campaign escalated after I told Daniel I wanted to start my own event planning business. I had the experience, the contacts, and a small inheritance from my parents that could serve as seed money. Patricia's face went rigid when she heard. A business? How ambitious. Though I'm not sure the Hartwell name should be associated with trade. It's event planning, not selling fish at a market, I said, keeping my voice even. Close enough, dear. Within a week, 3 of my potential clients mysteriously canceled. When I called to ask why, they were vague, uncomfortable. We've decided to go in a different direction. We don't think you're the right fit. We've heard some concerning things about your reliability. I confronted Patricia at Sunday brunch, Daniel's one non-negotiable family tradition. Did you sabotage my business? She dabbed her lips with a linen napkin, taking her time. Sabotage is such an ugly word. I simply shared some concerns with my friends. They have a right to know who they're working with. What concerns? I've never failed to deliver on a contract. No, but you're under so much stress, aren't you? New marriage, trying to fit into a family above your station. I worry you might crack under pressure. I'd hate for my friends to suffer for your limitations. My hands clenched under the table. Daniel, as always, tried to mediate. Mom, that's not fair. Catherine is incredibly talented. Of course she is, darling. In her own sphere. But the people in our circle expect a certain pedigree. I smiled sweetly. You mean they're snobs? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Careful, Catherine. You may have married my son, but that doesn't make you untouchable. The threat was clear. And it was just the beginning. Poisoning started subtly. Stomach aches after Sunday brunches at the estate. Dizziness. Nausea. My doctor ran tests but found nothing definitive. Might be stress, he said. Maybe see a therapist? But I knew. Every time I ate something Patricia prepared personally, her specialty, her homemade cookies, her signature chicken dish, I got sick. Never enough to hospitalize me, just enough to make me weak, to make Daniel worry. Maybe Mom's right, he said one night as I lay in bed, clutching my stomach. Maybe this is stress. Should we postpone the business idea? No, I gasped. I'm fine. Just a bug. But the bugs kept coming, and Patricia's smile grew wider. Then came the financial sabotage. My credit cards were mysteriously maxed out. My bank account showed purchases I never made, expensive jewelry from stores I'd never visited. When I tried to dispute the charges, I discovered someone had changed my contact information. All the alerts had been going to a different email address. Took weeks to untangle. Police investigated but found nothing. Transactions had been made with my card, my PIN. Maybe you forgot, the detective suggested. Sometimes stress can cause memory issues. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't forgetful. But Patricia was making me look like both. The breaking point came at the Hartwell Foundation Gala, the social event of the year. I'd worked for months on my outfit, a vintage Dior gown I'd found at an estate sale, elegant and understated. I felt beautiful for the first time in months. Patricia arrived in the same dress. The exact same dress, except hers was clearly new, perfectly tailored, dripping with the kind of authenticity money could buy. Oh my, she gasped when she saw me, her hand fluttering to her throat. Catherine, darling, you shouldn't have. Copying my dress? I'm flattered, but it's rather desperate, don't you think? The whispers started immediately. I could see the judgment in people's eyes. The new wife, so insecure she had to copy the mother-in-law. So pathetic. Daniel pulled me aside. Did you know Mom was wearing this dress? No. I bought this months ago. She's the one who... But looking at his face, I could see he didn't entirely believe me. His mother had planted enough seeds of doubt. Poor Catherine, so stressed, so unstable, now so obsessed she's copying Patricia's wardrobe. That night, I lay awake beside my sleeping husband and realized the truth. Patricia wouldn't stop until I was gone. Out of Daniel's life. Out of the family. Out of existence if necessary. I just didn't know how far she was willing to go. The car accident happened on a Tuesday morning. I was driving to a meeting with a potential client. Yes, I'd refused to give up on my business despite everything, when my brakes failed on a winding road near the estate. I remember the panic as my foot pressed down and nothing happened. Car just kept accelerating. I pumped the brakes frantically. Nothing. Curve was coming up fast. Trees on one side, a cliff on the other. I jerked the wheel, choosing the trees over the drop. Better to hit something than to fly off into oblivion. The impact was brutal. Metal crunching, glass shattering, my body thrown against the seatbelt like a rag doll. Then darkness. When I woke up 3 days later to the detective's revelation, brakes cut, attempted murder, my first thought was almost relief. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. Someone really was trying to destroy me. My second thought was fury. Daniel was at my bedside when I fully regained consciousness. His eyes were red-rimmed, his usually perfect hair disheveled. He grabbed my hand like a drowning man grabbing a life preserver. "Thank God," he whispered. "Catherine, I thought I'd lost you." "Someone cut my brakes, Daniel." His face crumpled. "I know. The police told me. They're investigating everyone who had access to your car. It was your mother." The words hung in the air between us. He pulled back slightly, his expression shifting from relief to disbelief. "Catherine, that's insane. My mother would never. She's been trying to get rid of me since the day we met. The poisoning, the sabotage, and now this." "Poisoning? Catherine, you were sick. Stress can." "Stop." My voice was stronger now, fueled by rage. "Stop making excuses for her. Stop choosing her over me. She tried to kill me, Daniel." He stood up, pacing the small hospital room. "The police will investigate. If there's any evidence." "There won't be. There never is with her. She's too careful, too connected, too rich to leave traces." He looked at me with something like pity, and I hated it. Hated that even now, after everything, he couldn't see what his mother really was. The police investigation went exactly as I predicted. Patricia had an alibi, lunch with the senator's wife. Her mechanic had serviced her car that day, nowhere near mine. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no evidence. "We know she did it," the detective told me privately. "But knowing and proving are different things. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hartwell. Without evidence, our hands are tied." Patricia came to visit me once before I was discharged. Daniel had stepped out to talk to the doctor. She stood in the doorway, immaculate in cream-colored Chanel, a small smile playing at her lips. "I hear you've been making accusations, Catherine. You tried to kill me." "Did I? How strange. Police seem to think it could have been anyone. Random violence is so common these days." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Let me make something clear, dear. You will never be good enough for my son. You're a gold digger, a nobody, a stain on the Hartwell legacy. I gave you chances to leave gracefully. You refused. So now we do this the hard way. Daniel will know the truth eventually." "Will he?" She laughed softly. "He's my son. My blood. You're just a woman he married in a moment of weakness. Who do you think he'll believe when it comes down to it?" She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Catherine? Next time I won't fail." I spent 6 months recovering, physically and mentally. The accident had left me with a broken collarbone, fractured ribs, and a traumatic brain injury that caused splitting headaches and memory issues. Daniel was attentive, guilty, trying to make up for not believing me. But the damage was done. A wedge had been driven between us, hammered deeper every day I couldn't prove his mother's guilt. I saw a therapist who specialized in trauma. Not because I thought I was crazy, but because I needed strategies to survive. To plan. "You're describing a narcissistic abuser," Dr. Chin said during one session. "The gaslighting, the systematic destruction of your credibility, the escalation to violence. These are classic patterns. So what do I do? In a normal situation? Leave. Remove yourself from the toxic environment. This isn't a normal situation." She studied me carefully. "No, it's not. And I sense you're not planning to leave. She tried to kill me. If I leave, she wins. And what's to stop her from trying again? From finishing what she started? Catherine, revenge isn't therapy." "I'm not looking for revenge, Dr. Chin. I'm looking for justice. And if I can't get it from the courts, I'll get it another way." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something I didn't expect. "If you're going to do this, be smart. Be patient. Don't become the monster you're fighting." I didn't promise her anything. Fate or karma or God, whatever you believe in, intervened 6 months after my accident. Daniel called me from the hospital, his voice shaking. "It's Mom. She's had a massive stroke." I remember the coldness that flooded through me. Not joy. Not yet. Just a sense of cosmic alignment. "Is she?" "She's alive. But Catherine, it's bad. The doctors say she's completely paralyzed on her left side. She can't speak, can barely move. She's going to need full-time care." I could hear him crying. My husband, the strong, successful man I'd married, reduced to sobs by the thought of losing his mother. The mother who'd tried to murder me. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. What do you need from me?" Even then, I was playing the part. The dutiful wife. Caring daughter-in-law. "We need to talk about care options. The doctors say she can't live alone anymore. She needs constant supervision, help with everything, eating, bathing, medication. I'm thinking we should find a good facility, somewhere she'll get professional care. What about bringing her to our house?" The words were out before I'd fully formed the plan. But the moment I said them, I knew. This was it. This was how Patricia would pay. "Catherine, that's too much to ask. After everything. She's your mother, Daniel. And she's helpless now. We can't just abandon her to a facility. Let me take care of her. It's what family does." I could hear the relief in his voice. The guilt he'd been carrying about his mother's accusations against me, about not believing me, was washing away. Here I was, offering to care for the woman who'd tried to kill me. How noble. How forgiving. How perfectly positioned for revenge. Patricia moved into our guest room 2 weeks later. The room I'd carefully prepared with everything she'd need. A hospital bed, a wheelchair, monitoring equipment, and 24-hour access to someone who hated her with every fiber of her being. Me. The first day she arrived, I watched as the EMTs transferred her from the ambulance gurney to the bed. Her face was partially paralyzed, drooping on the left side. Her left arm hung useless. She could make sounds but not words, garbled, frustrated noises that communicated nothing. But her right eye, that eye was clear. Alert. Aware. She looked at me, and in that look I saw it all. The recognition, the fear, the dawning understanding of what her helplessness meant with me as her caregiver. I smiled. "Don't worry, Patricia," I said softly, leaning close so only she could hear. "I'm going to take such good care of you." Daniel squeezed my shoulder. "Thank you for doing this. I know it can't be easy." "It's the least I can do," I said. "She's family." That night, after Daniel fell asleep, I went to check on Patricia. She was awake, staring at the ceiling, her good hand twitching against the blanket. I pulled up a chair beside her bed. Can you understand me? I asked quietly. Her right eye swiveled to me, sharp and terrified. Good. So here's how this is going to work. I'm your nurse now, Patricia. Your only nurse. Daniel works 12-hour days. He's barely home. It's just you and me. I leaned forward. Remember what you said to me in the hospital? About failing next time? Well, you failed. And now you're completely at my mercy. Funny how things work out, isn't it? She made a sound, high-pitched, desperate. Plea, maybe. Or a curse. I couldn't tell and didn't care. Your medication schedule is complex. So many pills, so many times a day. It would be so easy to forget one. Or two. Or give you the wrong one at the wrong time. Just small mistakes. The kind any exhausted caregiver might make. Her eye widened. And bathing, that's tricky too. The water temperature has to be just right. Too hot and you could get burns. Too cold and you could get pneumonia. So many things that could go wrong. I stood up, smoothing my hands over my jeans. But don't worry. I'm not going to kill you, Patricia. That would be too quick, too merciful. I'm going to keep you alive for as long as possible. Alive and aware and completely helpless while I control every single aspect of your existence. Just like you tried to control mine. I headed for the door, then paused. Sleep well. I'll see you in the morning for your first medications. Try not to think too hard about which ones they are. The routine established itself quickly. Daniel would leave for work at 7. I'd wait until his car pulled out of the driveway, then I'd start my day with Patricia. Medications first. Her stroke recovery required a precise regimen: blood thinners, anti-seizure meds, blood pressure pills, vitamins. The bottles were all lined up on her bedside table, a rainbow of pharmaceutical control. Let's see, I'd say, picking up bottles at random. Is this the morning one or the evening one? Can never remember. Oh well, I'm sure it's fine. Sometimes I'd mix up the doses. Sometimes I'd skip one entirely. Never enough to cause immediate crisis, just enough to slow her recovery, to keep her in a constant state of discomfort and confusion. The doctors would shake their heads at her follow-up appointments. Her progress is slower than we'd like. Are you sure you're following the medication schedule exactly? Of course, I'd say, pulling out the chart I'd made. Perfect documentation, all false. I'm very careful about her care. Daniel would take my hand. She's doing her best. It's a lot to manage. It really is, I'd agree, meeting Patricia's eye over the doctor's shoulder. So much to keep track of. Bathing was another opportunity. Patricia needed help with everything, getting into the shower chair, washing, drying. I'd make sure the water was just a little too hot or too cold. Never enough to cause visible injury, but enough to be deeply uncomfortable. Oh, I'm sorry, I'd say as she flinched under the near-scalding spray. Is that too hot? Let me adjust it. I turned the knob the wrong way, making it hotter. Her garbled sounds of protest would be muffled by the water. I can't hear you. What's wrong? Eventually I'd fix it, but the message was clear. I controlled her comfort. Every moment of it. The worst was the positioning. Stroke patients need to be turned regularly to prevent bed sores. It's a delicate process, one that requires gentle handling and proper timing. I'd forget to turn her for hours. She'd lie in the same position until her skin started to break down, red pressure marks blooming on her back and hips. Then I'd act shocked at her next doctor's visit. I don't understand, I'd say, tears in my eyes. I've been so careful about turning her. I follow the schedule religiously. The doctor would explain that sometimes it just happened that some patients were more susceptible. But I'd see the doubt in Patricia's eye. She knew. She always knew. But she couldn't tell anyone. Daniel would come home exhausted. And I'd be there with dinner ready, a sympathetic ear, and reports on his Mother's Day that were carefully edited for maximum sympathy. She had a hard day, I'd say. Got agitated during her bath. I think she's frustrated with her progress. I tried to calm her, but you know how she is. You're a saint, he'd tell me, kissing my forehead. I don't know what we'd do without you. She's family, I'd repeat. We take care of family. At night, after Daniel fell asleep, I'd sometimes sit in Patricia's room. Just sit there in the darkness, watching her. She'd be awake, I could tell from her breathing. Aware of my presence. Afraid of what I might do. I wouldn't do anything. That was the point. The anticipation, the fear, the not knowing, that was the punishment. Still awake? I'd whisper. Can't sleep? I imagine it's hard, wondering what tomorrow will bring. Whether I'll remember your blood pressure medication. Whether the water will be the right temperature. Whether I'll turn you on time or leave you to develop another bedsore. Her breathing would quicken. You made me feel helpless, Patricia. Made me question my own sanity. Made me afraid in my own home. Now you know exactly how that feels. 3 months into her care, I hired a respite worker, not to give myself a break, but to maintain appearances. Daniel was starting to worry that I was burning out. You need time for yourself, he insisted. Let's get someone to help a few hours a week. I made a show of reluctance before agreeing to interview candidates. Then I systematically chose the worst possible caregivers. People who were rough with positioning. Who didn't speak to Patricia like she was a person. Who saw her as a burden rather than a patient. I'd supervise their first few visits, training them in all my techniques. Show them how Patricia preferred her water temperature too hot. How she liked to be positioned in the least comfortable way possible. How she was difficult and stubborn and needed firm handling. The good caregivers would quit quickly, uncomfortable with the way Patricia was treated. The bad ones stayed, and I encouraged them. You're doing great, I'd tell them, even as they manhandled Patricia during transfers. She needs someone who won't baby her. Patricia's sounds of distress would be dismissed as typical stubbornness. Her tears as frustration with her condition. Daniel never suspected. Why would he? I was the devoted daughter-in-law, sacrificing my own well-being to care for the woman who'd made my life hell. I was the hero of this story. Only Patricia and I knew the truth. Turning point came during a family gathering. Daniel's sister Emma flew in from California, someone I'd rarely met because she'd distanced herself from the family years ago. She took one look at Patricia and her face went pale. What happened to her? She demanded. She looks, my God, she's deteriorated so much. It's the stroke, I explained gently. It was very severe. We're doing everything we can. Emma spent the weekend watching me care for Patricia. I could feel her eyes on me, suspicious, questioning. On Sunday morning, she cornered me in the kitchen. You're hurting her. I didn't flinch. I'm sorry. Don't play dumb. I see how rough you are. How long you leave her in uncomfortable positions. How she flinches when you come near her. Emma, she had a stroke. She's sensitive to everything now. I'm as gentle as possible. Bullshit. Emma's voice was low, furious. I know what my mother did to you. Daniel told me everything, the sabotage, the accident, all of it. And I know you have every right to hate her. But this is torture. Finally, someone saw it. I'd expected to feel caught, afraid. Instead, I felt a rush of satisfaction. Are you going to tell Daniel? She stared at me for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. No. No. She destroyed my childhood too, you know. Drove away every woman Daniel or I ever brought home if they weren't suitable. Made Dad so miserable he died just to get away from her. Turned Daniel into her puppet. Emma's eyes were hard. I moved 3,000 miles away to escape her. You're trapped here. So if this is how you survive? I didn't see anything. She left that afternoon and never mentioned it again. A year into Patricia's care, her condition had deteriorated significantly. Not enough to kill her, I was very careful about that, but enough that she was a shell of her former self. The doctors were puzzled by her lack of progress despite optimal home care. Daniel was frustrated. Maybe we should move her to a facility after all. Somewhere with round-the-clock professionals. No, I said firmly. She stays here. With family. Because I wasn't done. Not yet. Patricia's eye, that one good eye that still held awareness, had developed a permanent look of terror. Every time I entered her room, I'd see it. The knowledge that she was completely at my mercy and I had none to give. How are we feeling today? I'd ask brightly, adjusting her pillows in a way that left her neck at an uncomfortable angle. Ready for your bath? The garbled sounds of protest had become weaker over time. She was giving up, surrendering to her fate. That should have satisfied me. It didn't. One night, 2 days before the anniversary of my car accident, I sat beside her bed with a photo album. My wedding album specifically. Remember this day? I asked, flipping through pages. You spilled wine on my mother's veil. Right here, I pointed to the rehearsal dinner photos. You smiled so sweetly while you did it. Patricia's, I followed the pictures. And here, I turned to the reception photos. This is when you told everyone about my humble background. Made sure they all knew I wasn't good enough for your son. Her breathing had become labored. I could see her distress mounting. And this one, I pulled out a different photo, one from my hospital bed after the accident. This is what you did to me. Or tried to do. Remember? Remember telling me you wouldn't fail next time? I leaned in close, my voice dropping to a whisper. You failed, Patricia. You failed completely. And now look where we are. You're lying in a bed in my house, completely dependent on me for everything. Food, water, medication, dignity. I control it all. How does it feel to be helpless? For the first time in months, Patricia made a sound that was almost a word. A garbled sorry or maybe please. I couldn't tell which. Too late for apologies. Way too late. I stood up, turning off the light as I left. See you tomorrow for breakfast. Let's hope I remember which pills are which. The end came on a Tuesday morning, exactly 2 years after my accident. Poetic, really. I went in to give Patricia her morning medications as usual. But this time I noticed her breathing was different, shallow, ragged. Her skin had a grayish tint. I checked her pulse. Weak. Erratic. I could have called 911 right then. Should have. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled up a chair beside her bed, just like I had so many nights before. Her eye found mine, and in it I saw the question. Are you going to let me die? You cut my brakes, I said softly. Do you remember? You sat in your mansion, drinking your expensive tea, planning my death. You wanted me gone so badly you were willing to commit murder. Her breathing grew more labored. The police said you'd fail. That you'd try again. And you were right, you did fail. But not at killing me, Patricia. You failed at understanding who I really am. I took her hand, her weak, useless hand, and held it gently. A mockery of comfort. I'm not some weak girl you could destroy. I'm the woman who survived you. Who took every cruel thing you did and turned it into strength. Who took your worst nightmare, your helplessness, and made it your reality. Her eye was glazing over now. Not much time left. I want you to know something as you leave this world. Daniel knows. He's known for months what you tried to do to me. He found evidence you'd hidden, proof the police never found. And do you know what he said? I leaned in close, my lips almost touching her ear. He said you deserved this. Every moment of suffering. Every indignity. Every fear. He chose me over you, Patricia. In the end, your son chose the woman you tried to kill. Her last breath was a rattle, a final protest that went nowhere. I sat with her body for a few minutes, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt. Just emptiness. Then I picked up the phone and called 911, my voice breaking with perfectly performed grief. My mother-in-law, she's not breathing. Please send someone. I think I think she's gone. The funeral was a spectacle. The Hartwell name commanded respect, and Patricia's memorial service drew hundreds. People spoke of her charity work, her grace, her dedication to family. I listened to it all with a solemn expression, Daniel's hand in mine. No one mentioned the monster she'd been. The abuser, the attempted murderer. In death, she got to keep her pristine reputation. But I knew the truth. And so did Daniel. That night, after the last guest left and we were alone in our bedroom, he turned to me. She suffered at the end, didn't she? I could have lied. Should have lied. Yes. He nodded slowly. Good. Daniel. I found her journals, Catherine. Months ago. She documented everything, the sabotage, the poisoning, the accident. She was planning to try again when she had the stroke. My blood went cold. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted her to pay. And I knew you'd make her pay better than any court ever could. He looked at me, and his eyes were hard in a way I'd never seen before. She tried to kill you. My wife. The woman I love. What you did, keeping her alive, making her depend on you, that was perfect justice. I tortured her, Daniel. For a year. She tortured you for 2. She would have killed you if she'd succeeded. She destroyed every other relationship I ever had, drove my sister away, made my father so miserable he drank himself to death. His voice broke. She was a monster, Catherine. And monsters don't deserve mercy. We stood there in silence, the truth of what we'd both become hanging between us. What does that make us? I finally asked. Survivors, he said. People who did what they had to do. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe that we were still good people, that justice had been served, that Patricia's death had balanced some cosmic scale. But late at night, I still see her eye. That one good eye filled with terror and awareness. I still hear the sounds she made, the garbled pleas I ignored. I still feel the weight of each small cruelty, each calculated torment. Dr. Chen was right. In fighting the monster, I'd become one too. The difference is I can live with what I am. Patricia couldn't. And in the end, maybe that's justice enough. 6 months after Patricia's death, Daniel and I scattered her ashes in the rose garden she'd loved at the family estate. It was a cold November morning, gray and cheerless. As the ashes fell among the thorns, Daniel squeezed my hand. She's gone. Really gone. We're free. But I knew better. Tricia would never be truly gone. She lived in the lines of my face when I looked in the mirror and saw her cruelty reflected back. She lived in the careful way I measured my words, always aware of how they could be weaponized. She lived in the darkness I discovered within myself, the capacity for systematic, patient revenge. We sold the estate, moved to a different city, started over. Sometimes people ask why we don't have children. I give them easy answers about careers, about timing, about wanting to focus on each other. I don't tell them the truth, that I'm terrified of becoming Patricia, of hurting someone I'm supposed to love, passing on the poison that flows through this family's veins. Daniel and I survived together, 2 people bound by the worst thing we ever did. Some nights I wake up and find him awake too, both of us haunted by the woman we let die slowly, painfully, alone. Do you regret it? He asked me once. I thought about lying. But we'd built our second chance on one terrible truth. We might as well honor it with honesty. No, I said. I regret what it made me. But I don't regret what happened to her. He pulled me close, and we lay there in the darkness, two monsters pretending to be human. Patricia wanted to teach me about being a Hartwell, about power and control and cruelty dressed in pearls and politeness. Mission accomplished, mother-in-law. Mission accomplished.